Ron stood in the doorway, his hand resting against the frame like he needed it to stay upright. Peter questioned, was I a good dad to you at least? The room went quiet. Peter didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands, picking at his sleeve like he was trying to choose the right truth, not the easy one. Before you came out to us, yeah, Peter said slowly, you were good. Ron nodded a little too fast, like he wanted to grab onto that and stop the conversation there, but Peter wasn't finished. But me and Jeffrey, we heard things, Peter added, voice softer now. You and Mom arguing, you tried to hide it but you didn't hide it that well. Ron's face tightened. We didn't know what it was about, Peter continued. We just knew something wasn't right. The house felt different, like walking on glass and not knowing where it would crack. Ron swallowed hard. I thought I protected you from that. You tried, Peter said, but kids notice more than you think. There was another pause. He looked up at Ron now, really looking at him. After everything, after you came out, things just got louder, not just the arguments. Everything, emotions, tension. Jeffrey got overwhelmed. I did too. Ron rubbed his face, exhausted. I never wanted you boys to feel like that. I was dealing with things I didn't even understand myself. Peter nodded. I get that now, I didn't back then. Ron stepped into the room a little more. So, was I a good dad? Peter hesitated again, but this time it wasn't uncertainty, it was honesty forming. You were a good dad, he said, just not always when we needed you the most. That hit harder than anything else. Ron exhaled shaky, that's fair. Peter shifted, then added quietly, Jeffrey took it the hardest, you know that, he didn't just see the fighting, he felt it. And now with everything else going on with him. Ron nodded, yeah, I know. From down the hall, a soft sound, Jeffrey shifting, maybe half awake, maybe listening. Peter glanced toward the door. He still needs you, you know, even if he doesn't say it right. Ron looked in that direction too, his expression softening. I'm trying, he said. Peter gave a small shrug, then don't just try, be there. Ron let out a quiet breath. I will. And for the first time in a while, it didn't sound like a promise he was saying out of guilt. It sounded like one he actually meant. Ron leaned back in his chair, staring at the floor like the weight of everything finally had somewhere to land. When Jeffrey told me that he wished your mom and I could switch places, Ron said quietly, voice rough, I wasn't mad at him. Truth is, some days I feel the same way. Peter's head lifted a little, surprised, but he didn't interrupt. With everything he's dealing with, his living situation, his care, Ron continued. Your mom handled all of it. Doctor appointments, therapy, hygiene, she was always there, always on top of it. He let out a breath, shaking his head. And me, he added. I was focused on you, Peter, your SATs, law school, making sure you had every opportunity. I thought I was doing the right thing. Peter stayed quiet, listening. But while I was doing that, Ron's voice dropped, I wasn't there for him. That sat heavy in the room. Peter shifted forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Then get to know him now, he said simply. Ron looked up like the answer was too direct, too possible. It's not too late, Peter went on. Yeah, you missed things, big things, but he's still here, he still needs a dad. Ron swallowed, I don't even know where to start. Peter gave a small, tired smile. Start small, sit with him, talk to him, don't make it about fixing everything, just be there. Ron nodded slowly. He's not Mom, Peter added. He doesn't need you to replace her, he just needs you to show up. From down the hallway, Jeffrey's door creaked slightly, just enough to remind them he was there. Ron glanced toward it, then back at Peter. I've spent so much time thinking about what I didn't do, Ron said. I didn't think about what I still can do. Peter nodded once, exactly. Ron stood up, taking a breath like he was about to do something that scared him. Guess I should start now. Peter leaned back, watching him go. Yeah, he said quietly, you should. Ron moved around the kitchen early, a little quieter than usual but more focused. Backpack, wipes, a change, breakfast. He checked everything twice like he didn't want to get it wrong today. Down the hall, Jeffrey stirred. Dad, what? Jeffrey mumbled, eyes barely open. Ron glanced over. Peter had to leave early for work. Jeffrey blinked slowly, still half in sleep. I'm still dreaming. Ron let out a small breath, a hint of a smile sneaking through. Yeah, then it's a pretty boring dream, he said, walking over. Come on, time to get the day started. Jeffrey groaned and pulled the blanket tighter. No. Ron sat on the edge of the bed. For a second he hesitated, then he gently pulled the blanket down just a bit. Hey, he said, softer now, we've got stuff to do and I'm doing it with you today. Jeffrey squinted at him, trying to process that. You, he asked, confused. Yeah, me, Ron said, thought I'd try something new. Jeffrey studied his face like he was looking for the catch. You're serious? Ron nodded, I am. There was a pause, then Jeffrey shifted, still sleepy but a little more awake now. Okay, he said quietly. Ron stood up and held out a hand, not rushing, not forcing. Jeffrey looked at it, then slowly reached out and took it. It wasn't a big moment, no dramatic music, no sudden change. Just a small start. And this time, Ron didn't miss it. Ron shifted his weight, clearly nervous now that he had to actually say it out loud. Jeff, I wanted a day just with you. Jeffrey frowned, pulling the blanket around himself a little tighter. So, what more isolation? Ron shook his head quickly, no, not that. Jeffrey looked at him unsure. No, Ron repeated, softer this time, I want to get to know you more. That made Jeffrey pause. Ron took a breath, steadying himself. After your mom died, I was grieving her so much that I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. Jeffrey's eyes dropped. I thought I was helping, Ron continued. Setting routines, trying to keep things together, but I made your life harder. I pushed instead of listening. Silence filled the space. You tried to tell me, Ron said, voice quieter now, and I wasn't hearing you. Jeffrey swallowed, his fingers tightening in the blanket. So, I want to try today, Ron added, not to fix everything, just to be with you, to actually listen this time. He hesitated, then added, almost like he wasn't sure he deserved to ask. Please. Jeffrey didn't answer right away. He looked at his dad, really looked at him, like he was deciding if this was real or just another moment that would fade. Just today, Jeffrey asked. Ron shook his head slowly. Today's just the start, if you let it be. Another pause. Then Jeffrey let out a small breath. Okay, he said quietly. Not fully trusting, not fully open. But not shutting him out either. And for Ron, that was enough to begin. Peter stood in the other room, quiet, listening without meaning to. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, not interrupting, just taking it in. In Jeffrey's room, Ron glanced around, a little unsure. Jeff, your diaper stuff, where is it? He asked, trying to sound casual but clearly out of his element. Jeffrey shifted, still sitting on the bed, top drawer. Ron walked over and opened it. And paused. Damn, he muttered under his breath, I never knew they came this big before. Jeffrey's face flushed a little, a mix of embarrassment and defensiveness. Yeah, well, they do. Ron quickly realized how that sounded and shook his head. I didn't mean it like that, he said. Your mom always handled this stuff, I never really saw it. Jeffrey looked down. Yeah, I know. There was an awkward beat, but Ron didn't back out this time. Instead, he picked one up, looking at it for a second like he was trying to understand, not judge. You want to walk me through it? Ron asked. Jeffrey blinked, surprised. You sure? He asked. Ron nodded. I said I wanted to learn, that means actually learning. Jeffrey hesitated, then gave a small nod. Okay. From the other room, Peter let out a quiet breath he didn't realize he was holding. It wasn't perfect, it was awkward. But for the first time, Ron wasn't avoiding it. Jeffrey looked toward the chair, then back at Ron. Did you put a Chucks in my seat? He asked. Ron blinked. A what? The blue pad, Jeffrey said, a little more matter of fact. The one I sit on, I can't really move around much without it. Ron paused, realizing this was one of those details he had completely missed before. Oh, okay, got it, he said quickly, not brushing it off this time. Show me where it is. Jeffrey nodded toward a small stack near the dresser. Over there. Ron walked over, picked one up and looked at it for a second, then back at Jeffrey. So this goes on the chair first, he asked. Yeah, Jeffrey said, it just helps in case of leaks or anything. Ron gave a small nod. Makes sense. He moved over to the chair and carefully set it down, smoothing it out like he didn't want to mess it up. Like that? He asked. Jeffrey looked then nodded. Yeah, that's right. Ron let out a quiet breath. All right's learning already. There was still a little awkwardness in the room, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It felt workable. Ron glanced back at Jeffrey. Anything else I should know before we get you up? Jeffrey hesitated, then, a little more comfortable now, said, yeah, there's a few things. And this time, Ron was ready to listen. Ron adjusted things carefully, still getting used to the routine. Your harness is snug but not too tight, right? He asked, double-checking. Jeffrey nodded, right. Ron gave a small nod back, like he was relieved to get that part right. Okay, next step, Ron said, trying to stay on track, teeth brushing time. He paused, rubbing the back of his neck. Jeff, I'm sorry, he admitted. I know you usually eat by now and I'm kinda throwing things off. This is a lot all at once. Jeffrey looked at him for a moment, then let out a small breath. Doing this, it's not for the weak, he said. It's a lot, yeah. Ron gave a quiet, understanding nod. I know you love me, Jeffrey continued, but usually other people help too, like Tom or Pat, they know what they're doing. That stung, but Ron didn't shut down from it. Jeffrey looked back at him. But you will later, he added. Ron met his eyes, more steady now. Yeah, he said, I will. He picked up the toothbrush, then looked back at Jeffrey, not rushing him. All right, you're gonna have to coach me through this part too, Ron said. Jeffrey gave the smallest hint of a smile. Yeah, I figured. And just like that. It wasn't about getting everything perfect. It was about staying, learning, and not walking away. Jeffrey looked down at his hands, voice quieter now but heavier. After Mom, you changed Dad, he said, but you divorced her. Ron froze for a second, then sat down across from him, not avoiding it. I did, Ron said. I divorced your mom because I was done hiding my true self. Jeffrey didn't look up yet. But listen to me, Ron added, softer. I loved your mother, she was my best friend, that never changed. He took a breath, letting the memories settle instead of rushing past them. She fought for you, Ron continued. Got you from the firehouse, made sure you had a home, a family, and before you, we adopted Peter, we built this life together. Jeffrey's fingers tightened slightly. Even after the divorce, Ron said, she didn't hate me, she told me, live in your truth, Ron, she meant that. Jeffrey finally looked up, eyes searching. So it wasn't because of us, he asked quietly. Ron shook his head immediately. No, never because of you, not Peter, that was between me and her and who I was trying to be. He hesitated, then added honestly, after I met Will. The name hung there for a moment. But none of that, Ron said, leaning forward a little, changes that you're my son, or that I should have been there more. Those are two different things and I mixed them up for too long. Jeffrey studied him. You can be who you are, Jeffrey said slowly, and still be my dad. Ron nodded, his voice quieter now. Yeah, I'm starting to understand that. There was a pause, not tense this time, just real. Jeffrey shifted slightly. Okay, he said. Not full acceptance, not everything solved. But something honest. Finally out in the open. Will stepped into the doorway, glancing between them. Hey, you forgot you were supposed to have lunch with me and my sister, he said, a little hesitant, like he didn't want to interrupt something important. Ron looked up, clearly caught between two things. From the other room, Peter called out, go, go. Ron let out a small breath and nodded, thanks. He turned back to Jeffrey, not rushing this part. I won't be long, Ron said, and when I get back we keep going, just us. Jeffrey studied him, like he was measuring whether that promise would hold. Okay, he said. Ron stood there a second longer, then added, you good while I'm gone. Jeffrey gave a small shrug, yeah, I'll be here. Ron nodded, then headed toward the door with Will, but he glanced back once more. Not out of habit. Out of intention. Peter, still in the other room, shook his head slightly with a faint smile. It wasn't perfect timing. But for once, Ron didn't just disappear. Peter leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, watching Jeffrey settle back. So how was Dad, he asked. Jeffrey let out a small breath, I just got out of bed. Peter raised an eyebrow, so not good. Jeffrey shook his head a little, no, not like that. Peter stepped in a bit more, then what? Jeffrey looked down thinking. He's trying, he said finally. Peter didn't respond right away. He doesn't know what he's doing, Jeffrey added. Like, at all, he had to ask where everything was, what things are called, even the basics. Peter gave a small, knowing nod. Yeah, that sounds like him. But he stayed, Jeffrey said. That made Peter pause. He didn't rush it, didn't hand me off, didn't act like it was too much, Jeffrey went on. He just kept asking, listening. Peter leaned against the wall now, arms loosening. That's new, he admitted. Jeffrey nodded, yeah. There was a small silence between them. It's weird, Jeffrey added. Part of me is waiting for him to stop trying. Peter looked at him, that's fair. But part of me thinks he might not this time, Jeffrey said. Peter let out a quiet breath. Then don't shut that part down, he said, just let it play out. Jeffrey nodded slowly. Yeah. Peter gave a small half-smile, and hey, getting out of bed is progress, right? Jeffrey rolled his eyes a little, but there was the faintest hint of a smile there too. Yeah, I guess it is. Jeffrey looked down for a moment, then spoke more quietly. When Mom passed, he just kind of turned off, he said, like he shut everything down. Peter didn't interrupt this time. But he's still grieving her, Jeffrey added. We all are, just in our own way. Peter nodded slowly. Yeah, that sounds about right. Jeffrey shifted a little. She helped him, find who he really was, even if it was messy. Peter leaned back against the wall. Mom always did that, pushed people to be honest. Jeffrey gave a small nod. Yeah, and after that he found Will. There was a pause. Peter glanced toward the door Ron had left through. Guess that's part of why this is all so complicated. Yeah, Jeffrey said, it's not like he stopped loving her, he just changed. Peter looked back at Jeffrey. People can do both, grieve someone and still move forward. Jeffrey nodded, thinking. I think he's trying to do both now, he said, be who he is and still be our dad. Peter gave a small, understanding look. About time. Jeffrey let out a quiet breath. Yeah. And for once, neither of them argued with that. Peter rubbed the back of his neck, voice a little heavier now. We all miss her just in our own way, he said, but we didn't talk about it, not really, we just broke around each other. Jeffrey looked at him, quiet. We tried to be there for you, Peter added, because you needed the most care, but in doing that no one actually heard you. Jeffrey nodded slowly. Everyone misses her, he said, and yeah, they pay attention to me, make sure I'm okay, but no one actually talks about it. Peter's expression softened. Yeah, he admitted, we focused on doing, not feeling. Jeffrey looked down at his hands. It's like everything just stayed stuck, no one wanted to say it out loud. Peter stepped a little closer. Then maybe we should, he said, not all at once but start somewhere. Jeffrey hesitated. Like what, he asked. Peter thought for a second. Like saying we miss her, he said, without trying to fix it right after. Jeffrey swallowed. I miss her, he said quietly. Peter nodded. Me too. The room went still, not empty, not broken. Just honest for the first time in a while. Peter looked at him more seriously now. Jeffrey, how do you feel? Jeffrey took a moment, like he wasn't used to being asked that in a real way. Like I'm finally being heard, he said. After she died, it's like no one really listened. They helped, yeah, but they didn't hear me. Peter nodded slowly, not interrupting. Jeffrey went on, a little more steady now. Today, with Dad, and even now it feels different, he admitted, like what I say actually matters. Peter let out a quiet breath. Then we should have been doing that all along, he said. Jeffrey gave a small shrug. Yeah, but we didn't. Peter stepped closer, leaning against the wall near him. We can now, he said. Jeffrey looked up at him. Yeah, he said quietly. And this time it didn't feel like something they missed. It felt like something they were finally starting to get right. The front door opened and Ron stepped in with Will, talking quietly, until they both noticed how calm the room felt. Jeffrey looked up at them, something different in his expression, lighter. Hey, Ron said carefully, everything okay? Jeffrey nodded. Yeah, he said, then after a small pause, guys, thanks for hearing me out for real. Peter glanced at Ron, then back at Jeffrey. I don't even know the last time I felt happy like today, Jeffrey admitted. That landed. Ron's face softened immediately, a mix of relief and something deeper, like he realized how long it had been. You deserve that, Ron said quietly. Will stayed by the door giving space but smiling a little. Sounds like we missed something important. Peter shook his head slightly. Nah, you came back at the right time. Jeffrey looked between all of them. It wasn't anything big, he said, just talking, actually talking. Ron stepped a little closer. We can keep doing that, he said, not just today. Jeffrey held his gaze for a second, then nodded. Yeah, he said. No big dramatic moment. Just something steady. And for once, it didn't feel like it was going to disappear. Ron rubbed the back of his neck, a little guilty. Hey, we'll do a makeup day, all right. I forgot lunch with Will's sister, but I can fix that later. Jeffrey shook his head. No, he said, I don't care about that. Ron paused. Jeffrey looked at him and then at Peter. You're my dad, he said to Ron, and you too, Peter, you both talked to me today, not at me. That hit both of them. For the past 3 years, Jeffrey continued, voice a little unsteady, I felt like I was carrying Mom's death alone. The room went quiet. But today, he said, taking a breath, I felt better, like I'm not going to be alone anymore. Peter looked down for a second, then back up, more serious than before. You're not, he said. Ron stepped closer, his voice softer than it had been all day. You never should have been, he added, and I'm sorry it took me this long to show up the right way. Jeffrey didn't look away this time. You did today, he said. Ron nodded. And I'll do it again tomorrow, he said, and the day after that. Jeffrey let out a small breath, like something he'd been holding finally loosened. Okay, he said. Will, still near the door, gave a quiet smile, seeing it for what it was. Not everything fixed, but something real finally starting. Together. Ron looked between them, his voice quieter now, steady but full. Sue, she kept us together, he said, even in death. The words settled over the room. Jeffrey swallowed, eyes softening. Yeah, she did. Peter nodded slowly. She always did, even when we didn't realize it. Ron let out a breath, looking down for a second. She was the one holding all the pieces, he admitted, and when we lost her, we didn't know how to hold each other. Jeffrey shifted, then said quietly, maybe this is us learning now. Ron looked at him, really looked at him. Yeah, he said, I think it is. Peter gave a small, thoughtful nod. She'd probably be yelling at us for taking this long. That got the faintest smile out of Jeffrey. Yeah, he said, she would. Ron smiled a little too, though his eyes were still heavy with emotion. But she'd also be proud, he added. The three of them stood there, not fixed, not perfect, but finally connected in a way they hadn't been in a long time. And somehow, Sue was still part of it.